Today I want to talk about these two FNAF minigames and how these are not actually the same story being told. So without further ado, let's get the show on the road. When it comes to FNAF theorizing, it's always been very important to be aware of specific details in each game. Text colors, numbers, dates, object placement, heck, even animatronic toe count can be important. Having 5 victims for the MCI versus having 6 victims in the Into the Pit game has caused some massive discussions. Midnight Motorist's main character being yellow sparked an ongoing debate as to whether or not this character even is William Afton, as he's usually been portrayed as Purple Guy. Burncraft-specific endo pieces created a massive argument on whether this is the Mimic, Afton, or some other creature altogether, or if it's even real. The point is, focusing this intently on details is very important when interpreting Five Nights at Freddy's, and just one slight difference can lead you to a completely different conclusion. Every detail matters, and so keeping this in mind, there's actually several different areas of FNAF that we really need to take another look at because we overlooked things just due to the fact that they made sense. But if we actually look at specific details like we do in other areas of FNAF, some of these ideas do not hold up. Sometimes it's just too easy to overlook something because we think it's a fact when it clearly isn't. Today we need to re-examine the Take Cake to the Children minigame from FNAF 2 and compare it to the Security Puppet minigame from FNAF 6, because these two minigames are not as similar as I thought they were. I'd say the most similar thing about each of these two minigames is that both children are locked outside and get killed, but there are some very notable differences here, and I'd like to quickly point out some of them. First, the amount of children present is quite different. We see a maximum of 3 children in the Security Puppet minigame, whereas the Cake minigame shows 6 children. Hold on, what am I saying? That is actually completely wrong. There are a ton of children coming and going that the puppet is watching with all their different colored wristbands and stuff. So scrap that. There's definitely more than 3 children here. There's more than 6 children here. There are a ton of children coming and going through this place, but the way the children are behaving is completely different, and all 6 of the children in the FNAF 2 minigame are like standing where they are. They're not coming and going like this. What I actually mean by the 3 children statement is that there's 3 children present when Charlie is at the window, and when her death occurs, they're all walking away. So there's pretty much nobody there versus the 6 children in FNAF 2 all standing there. It's quite a different scenario. In a series where this kind of difference can literally change the entire lore of FNAF, I find it strange that we glaze over this difference simply because of how similar the 2 children's deaths are in these minigames. There's also a Freddy animatronic here in the Cake minigame, wandering around giving cake. The only animatronic we know of when Charlie dies near the exit is the puppet, but the puppet does not show up in this FNAF 2 minigame, unless you count the jump scare at the end. The gift boxes trapping the puppet are also nowhere to be seen in this minigame, and if this was Charlie's death, those boxes should be here, as well as the puppet. In the FNAF 2 minigame, we see the purple car show up and William get out, but in FNAF 6, we don't actually see anything that happens. We don't see William or the car, so both of those things, at best, are implied. And I'm not trying to be ridiculous here, I do think that it's the same car and the same killer. I'm not implying that there's more to the story than there is. I just want to point out the differences because they do exist. I'd also like to point out that the exits are different as well. The FNAF 2 game does not show any sign of a window near this exit, whereas in Charlie's death, she's looking through a window, not a door. And since in the Cake minigame there's only a door, that would imply that the child's trying to get back in through the door, whereas Charlie is kind of jumping at the window trying to get the children to come back and let her in. It's also worth mentioning the audio voice that plays in the FNAF 2 minigame. In the past, it's been hotly debated that the Save Him audio here could be Scott Cawthon's one retcon from the original series. Theorists have presented multiple ideas on how this can still work and this can still be the puppet in the minigame, without this phrase being a retcon of the puppet's gender. And while I'm not opposed to any of those ideas, I think there's a much more obvious answer here, because I truly think these minigames are clearly showing different children. These were never meant to be the same character, which would ultimately mean that this isn't Henry's daughter. So you might be thinking, hold on a second, Frar. In Henry's speech at the end of FNAF 6, it clearly shows this Take the Cake minigame right as Henry's talking about his daughter. The implication then being that this is his daughter, right? Well, if we actually look at the little clip from FNAF 6 again, that's not exactly what's happening here. Let's watch the clip.
My daughter, if you can hear me, I knew you would return as well. It's in your nature to protect the innocent. I'm sorry that on that day, the day you were shut out and left to die, no one was there to lift you up into their arms, the way you lifted others into yours. And then, what became of you? I should have known you wouldn't be content to disappear. Not my daughter.
When Henry is talking to his daughter and he says, "I'm sorry that on that day, the day you were shut out," we see a child shut out of the building. I think this is where most of the confusion about what child this is stems from. Clearly, this is Charlie being shut out, right? As he continues to talk, the video changes to the other footage from the security puppet minigame, where we for sure see his daughter. But why would the game show us both of these moments together like this, right in a row? It has to be her in both scenes, right? But that doesn't make sense with all the evidence we've just pointed out, unless we consider what Henry says to his daughter right before this. Right before this, he says, "I knew you would return as well. It's in your nature to protect the innocent." Immediately after "protect the innocent" is spoken, this is when the video shows us this child outside of the building.
It's in your nature to protect the innocent.
So I propose that this segment is first showing us one of the innocent children that Henry just referred to, a child that Charlie wants to protect. That's why we hear the words "save him" being spelled out in this minigame. The puppet wanted to save this child. This isn't Scott retconning the gender of these words in the minigame, pointing us to the idea that this is Henry's daughter, but rather, these are separate events that Henry's daughter is connected to. Henry's literally explaining how selfless his daughter is as he speaks to her desire to save others, and that's why we see this child's minigame again first, because he brings this up as he continues to talk about his daughter and her selflessness. It's essentially to show how she cared for others and wanted to save them. The death being so similar to hers just makes it all the more tragic, and her motivation even stronger. One last connection I do want to make that's definitely stretching it, so I saved it for the end because I don't think it's really as relevant, but essentially, when Henry's talking to his daughter, he says, "And then what became of you? I should have known. You wouldn't be content to disappear. Not my daughter." And what's really interesting is that in FNAF 2, the child standing by the door does not disappear. They're essentially still standing by the door. Whereas when Charlie is jumping up and down at the window, she literally does disappear. So I don't know if it's just like an interesting play on words to kind of connect us to that, hey, this is Charlie. She literally like disappears from the minigame until you go outside. Or if it's just, me definitely overthinking things, which is something I do. So my apologies. At the end of the day, I don't make all these videos to be like, hey, I'm right, because guess what? If you go through pretty much any of my videos, you'll see that I've been like instantly disproven by someone that has an equally great perspective or more evidence to prove that I was actually wrong. But I'm here for the love of the game. I want to meet other theorists. I want to talk, discuss. I just love FNAF. At the end of the day, I just want this to be a really fun place to come and discuss FNAF. I want to learn more. I don't care if I'm right. I am in this for the love of it. It's something I'm passionate about. It's something that matters to me. And I hope it is for you too. And that's the kind of environment I want to cultivate here. And that's really all I've got for today. So thank you for listening. Let me know what you think, and hopefully see you down in the comments.